can we encounter Yahweh Nissi? The Lord is my banner, that powerful, victorious name of God. That's the topic we're going to be addressing today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager. And today I have an amazing repeat guest. I'm so honored every time I get to bring him on the show. He's a modern day Renaissance man, Benny DiChiara. He's a singer, songwriter, recording artist, businessman, motivational speaker, father, and husband. And in October of 2015, he suffered a traumatic brain injury that actually fractured his skull. He suffered a concussion, and the injury could have easily ended his career and his life. But the astonishing thing was that he had a rapid and nearly full recovery, which was miraculous. And this healing process, not only was it a miracle in his life, but it also created the opportunity for blessings for everyone that would hear his music, because he created during the healing process and made a brand new, amazing album, 3 Days. And he's here to talk to us about his messaging behind the new album, Yahweh Nissi. Welcome, Benny. I am so delighted to have you on Flourish-Meant today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to get into this messaging, because you've got an edgy, very powerful new set of sounds coming out on the Yahweh Nissi album, but it's also got really wonderful, preachable messages behind it. So talk about why the words Yahweh Nissi, the Lord is my banner, surfaced in your heart and your spirit as something that you really wanted to bring to audiences through this work.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I know we were talking about 3 days coming, October coming up is going to be 8 years since the brain injury. So still no taste, still no smell, but we're talking. So that's a win, and we have to learn how to take a win. And God's like, hey, we're not done. We're not done here yet. So he saved my life. And that's where like Jeremiah 29:11 came out of for the 3 days record. So fast forward to last year, the end of last year, we put Yahweh Nissi together. God was just impressive. I had been doing studies on the name of the Lord, and Yahweh Nissi, Yahweh Nissi. So I'm looking it up and I'm doing all this research, everything. The Lord is my banner, right? And so if I can be honest, and maybe this will apply to your viewers or your listeners, God was like, there's a lot of evil in the world right now, a lot. And there's evil people in positions of power in government, school, just you name it. Watch the news, you can see Revelation being lived out, and even in some churches. And God is like, there's millions of people on the earth who call themselves Christians. So my question is, where are you? And why are you silent? And that was like a dagger coming directly through my chest. And I'm like, oh, and he says, that's right, Mister, I have a Christian rock band. Like, where are you? And so, like, yes, you're bringing life-affirming messages through your music, but it's time for a battle cry. And I need a battle cry. I'm talking marching feet and aggressive, and just we're gathering God's army to open their mouths and start fighting back and defeating some of this stuff that we're seeing. So, and I was like, oh, okay. And if you think about it, in biblical days, even in the Middle East, in the medieval ages or whatever, when an army went to war, there was a guy out front, and he was the standard bearer, right? He had the banner. So banner went left, army went left. Banner went right, army went right. But if you were the enemy and you saw the banner coming, you thought, oh, here we go. This looks like trouble. The world needs to have oh, this looks like trouble, look who's coming moment, right? And so I was like, yes, Lord. And so, and we wrote it. It's probably the most aggressive song that I've written. It's not like heavy metal or anything, but there's definite energy to it and purpose to it and drive to it. And it's calling God's army together, saying, enough of the silence. let's fight this anti-biblical stuff that's going on in the world right now. And so Yahweh Nissi is a title track, and that's where that came from.
So this is a war cry.
Pretty much, yeah. It is it's like, let's go.
So you're talking about God coming on the heels of a pandemic and into a space in this world climate where there's so much going on. People are stressed. And you're saying instead of feeling helpless, stand up and know who your banner is.
Exactly. It's my personal belief, not to offend anybody. I think COVID dumbed the world down. Lock yourself up. As a matter of fact, lock yourself away from church. I mean, there's a lot of evil went on during that time as well, right? So you have all that going on, but in the same sense, when Israel was being led out of Egypt, God provided a pillar of cloud for them to follow during the day and a pillar of fire at night to light them and warm them with all that kind of stuff and lead them, right? But what most people don't understand is Israel still had to walk. They could have stepped back and said, wow, look at this manifestation of God. Let's hold back and see what he does. And in my mind, I'm like, how often do we do that? Even as Christians, right? Let's see what God does with that. And God is going, I'm showing you the way. I need you to walk in it, right? And it's really a faith move. For me, it's a stage and the band and there's lights and we're performance and worship and there's all that. And it's not about being a rock star. It's about making Jesus famous, like he needs that. But that's what we're doing to bring his message to people. For you, it's your podcast. For a doctor, it could be a surgical suite or his office, or for a business person, it could be their staff meeting where they can insert a little Jesus into that, saying, let me tell you what God's doing with our business. Now, I know this may not be natural for some people, but what we're doing right now isn't natural either, right? It's just not, except for the fact that we are both walking and we're following the pillar per se. While it's not a physical manifestation of God, he took care of that because the Holy Spirit's in us. And that's why we're walking in it and doing it. And so I don't know if any of your listeners or viewers are going through something where they go, I just don't know. Just know, because God has you.
I think we all go through periods of uncertainty, and more frequently than we talk about going through them. And you have that as your life story. When you went through the traumatic brain injury and the healing process, God brought you healing, but you didn't just stop there. You allowed God to work through you in that process. So talk about how God gives us the victory and we have then a peace to do with that. Why do you think God does that for us?
We're designed for specific things. God designed us all for this. He designed for us to be talking again today, right? So pretty much where I am in my faith walk now, I don't want this to sound obnoxious. I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I just don't care. And they're like, well, that's kind of, and I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. I don't care in this sense. I don't care about who I am or who people think I am, but I do care and am fully aware of whose I am. There is a stark difference in thinking who we are than knowing whose we are. And when you know whose you are, right? We're the Lord's. We belong to him. He's given us all the gifts, all the talents that we can use. You kind of have, and I don't care. I don't care. In other words, I don't care what life throws at me. Nothing is going to be bigger than him. I don't care what he calls me to do. Nothing is going to be bigger than him. When we do all these recordings and we tour and we go and see all these shows, we're about to go do a show in Missouri. The logistics are crazy to do that. And I'm like, yep, I don't care, because he's going to lay it all out. If he put this together, which he did, he's going to take care of it. I just want to, there's freedom in that if you don't know, you don't know, but there's just a freedom in that, because it takes away all the worldly thoughts that we can put in our own minds, right? Because we're totally focused on him. If that made any sense.
I'm seeing that it's our human nature to want to know everything and to want to figure it all out and to want to be in control of that process and think about how we're presenting ourselves and where we're going and do all that branding stuff. When you say who you are, you mean like your brand of who you are, what other people see.
Or even worried about what people think about you.
Yeah.
I'm so done with that.
Or what's going to happen to you next? Because there's a
That too.
fear factor that you went through, a huge fear factor of not knowing what was next when you were going through the process of recovery. Can you
That's right.
talk about how that fear factor, how you walked that out, and that really helped you with this deep faith of trusting God with every step?
Yeah, it's a great question. The I don't want to say this. I don't think I really experienced fear because the first month of my recovery, I slept for 20 hours a day. So I didn't even know what was going on. They were just trying to figure out if I was going to have aneurysms and convulsions and survive during that time. So once I came out of that and I became a little bit more cognizant, right? There was a lot of praying, like, so I couldn't speak correctly. So if you and I were talking then, I would be Tina. So in Orlando, when I saw you, I thought, so what would happen, that's how I was seeing words in my head, right? So I'd go, Tina, Orlando, those go together. And it was in my family and even me, I'm like, is this the new deal? I mean, because I'm on a ceiling most of the time and that's hard to believe. But that, right? And I was like, come on, because I'm used to going 1,000 miles an hour and I'm doing 7. So it wasn't really like a fear thing, but there was a lot of questions like, Lord, what's going on here? What's going on? What's going on here? And then several weeks, the second month of my recovery is when I audibly heard God's voice speak to me. That's where Jeremiah 29:11 came from on the 3 days record. He audibly, now as an artist, the Holy Spirit gives you a check and says, take this, run with it. You trying to do your show, right? And God will say, here's something, run with that. And he gives us that as creatives. This was the very first time I audibly had him speak lyrics. So I'm going back and forth in my office and I'm just writing big third grade looking letters because I wasn't together yet. But that's where the song came from. And it was God's way of telling me, you may think you're concerned about if you're coming out of this, but but God, and watch what I do with this. All I need you to do is move in it. So I find that when we get fearful about things, especially in our faith walk, we have to dial it in and press into him, right? And let him speak into our life to where we can move in that confidence of whose we are. There it is again, right? Rather than who we are. Because I had a preconceived notion about what I was doing for him, even, right? Oh, Christian rock band, and we're doing that to reach people for you. But it was just this real quiet voice, subtle reminder of whose I was. And it was kind of like, son, I have you. Just do what I'm telling you.
And sometimes it's not about the big moments that everyone sees.
Nope.
God is really about those personal moments too. And you were able to really minister to your own father through what
Yeah.
God brought you in this healing journey, not just to masses
Yeah.
and audiences. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for that. Yeah. And me and my daddy were close. And, when you're Italian, it's daddy, it's not dad. So we were really close. And the worst thing my daddy told me, like a full week out of before he passed, he says, hey, I may not be here for you next week. And I was like, that's great, Dad. So, that. And then, but in the last couple of days of his life, we were having a little one-to-one. And I was like, so Daddy, not only do you have a place at the buffet table, you've got a name tag set up. So I need you to tell me that you know where you're going. And if not for you, do it for me. I just bring that. So his nickname for me is Pastor Boy, right? So he's like, yes, Pastor Boy, I know where I'm going. I'm like, that's any other day, Daddy, was real cute. Not today. I need to know. He says, Jesus died. He rose again. I'm going to heaven, right? I'm like, absolutely right. And so you're about to be immaculately healed. So it's going to suck for us. It's going to be great for you. In retrospect, it's also great for me because I know where you're living. So I know I'll see you again and I'll meet you there. And that's where the whole I'll meet you there title of the song came from. And it was a great closure moment, right? Because it gave you confidence in knowing you'll see him again.
Such a powerful story. I know we went over this in the previous interview, but we got to
Yeah.
do it again because it's
Yeah.
just
Why
such
not?
a wonderful testimony of where God met you in that space and how he's constantly bringing those personal message things that he's done in your life as a way of you ministering as a testimony. That's how we know who God is,
That's
through
right.
the truth, through the power of the word and the testimony that we share. So your testimony is always so powerful. It's not
Yeah.
just music, even though the music is amazing. It's
Yeah.
also that strong messaging that comes through, and it comes
Yeah.
from your heart. So how can
Thank
people
you.
get a copy of Yahweh Nissi and stay in touch with you and stay connected with you?
That's awesome. Thanks for that as well. So we're streaming everywhere. Spotify seems to be the number one thing. Just empowered Yahweh Nissi, and then our whole catalog pulls up on that. iTunes, Deezer. There's like 30 streaming services, or they can get in touch with us through our website, and that is rockin without a G, ROCKIN, the number 4 Jesus.com. So rockinforjesus.com.
In the second half of our conversation with amazing Renaissance man and Christian rock musician, lead singer, songwriter Benny DiChiara, we're going to dive into more of the details about his new album, Yahweh Nissi, and the messages that it brings, the powerful messages of helping us encounter that God who is our victory and our banner over our lives. Benny, can you talk to those who aren't feeling a victory right now, who are in a place where they feel either lost or they feel like they're helpless and being victimized and oppressed and stuck in their lives right now? How can they experience Yahweh Nissi?
I'm going to give you a visual answer for that real quick. The visual answer is there was a 33-and-a-half-year-old man hanging on a cross who experienced pain, suffering. Lord, let this cup pass from me if it's not for me. Even Jesus spoke this. But again, he stayed in what the Lord wanted. And that's why we gain heaven today. So no matter what we're going through, pain or confusion or anything like that, the reason I think God sent Jesus in human form is so that he could experience all these things that we experience, such as pain, such as trauma in life and all that kind of stuff. And the words that Jesus spoke from the cross, right? Forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do, but he took all of that on there. So the victory for us is knowing that truth. The victory for us is knowing that they may have pulled him down off of a cross, but he walked out of a grave. And if that is something that you're struggling with in your life, pain or sorrow or confusion, just know that when Jesus walked out of that grave, that gained us entrance to heaven. It gained us into the eternal family. And that's what's going to bring us out of all those things. Just knowing that and being connected to that. There's more. There's no more. If you want strength in a picture form, watch him walk out of the grave.
That's so powerful because a lot of times people will feel like they're stuck in a grave with an open door and they
Yep.
just can't take the steps to walk out. They've got to keep their eyes focused on Jesus in
That's
order
right.
to take those steps. He's already paved that way.
That's
But
right.
are there some practical things that you have done in your own life that have helped you really keep that visual ahead of you, that keep your eyes on Jesus when circumstances may have tempted you to doubt or feel insecure or uncertain?
Yeah. I'd like to have a t-shirt made that says, "It's not about me," because basically that's it. You know, when we start worrying about it being about us, or, oh, I have friends right now, oh, the band's blowing up. We see you everywhere. I'm like, you just don't even know. You just don't even know all of the work involved and all of the logistics involved in it. I mean, God had me come from a secular rock band years ago where I never wanted my kid to see anything I saw, into doing this for him. But when I look back on it, they also say hindsight's 2020. When I look back on it, he had me there for a purpose. He showed me things. When I was I'm going to share this with you. I don't share this with many people. So our band name way back in the day was Wanted. How precocious is that? Wanted. And so I had a keyboard stand and there was a star painted on the front, a ramp. with a cross in it, and the tail of the cross came out of the star. And people would come up after shows. I'm not saved. I'm in church every Sunday, but I'm not saved. And I told them, a star is what I want to be, and the cross is who's going to get me there. And I chuckle, Tina. Every time I tell that story, I chuckle because I hear God laughing, going, oh, I got your attention and you didn't even know it. So I can look back and see where he did things in my past that had full effect on where we are today, you and I talking in an interview. And he does it with little snippets of our life all over the place, right? And if we would look, if we would step back, and it's not about us, and like, God, what are you doing? And look at our life and where we are now. We go, oh, I see what you're doing, right? And all I've got to do is follow you. And then once you press in, and that's what helped me with that a lot. Press in. If you're not in the Word every day, please, 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 I beg you, if you get nothing else out of this interview, please get in a Word every day. I'm not talking about doing a book of the Bible every day, but just look. And if it's something new to you, open the Bible, point, and read what you're pointed to, because I find that God speaks that way sometimes. And you're going through something, right? And then you just flip open the Bible, and because this crazy bald-headed Italian guy said to, and then you point to a verse, and that verse specifically speaks to what you're going through at that time. And that's how God works, right? That's how he works. But that is how you build your faith base. And that's how you build your confidence in your fire. When I first got saved, people would look, and I was like, I was on fire all the time, and they could see me like 20 miles off. Then you get comfortable in your faith, and this is speaking to some of the more mature Christians listening, and you walk past people and think, wow, I hope they smell smoke, because you're not as on fire anymore, because you're comfortable with where you are, right? And all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, we have to reflame up and get going. There's nothing more incredible than when you live your day and you're walking in God's purpose every day. That's the I don't care attitude. I don't care what anybody says to me today. I don't care what happens to me today. He's ordained it. All I have to do is point people to him. I don't care if you're a fire hydrant, a tree, Tina, somebody I've never met before. I'm going to talk to you about Jesus. But part of that is like getting in a Word every day so that you're strengthened and emboldened to do that. And some people may say, well, that's not me. I can't do that. But God can. And God will present opportunities for you to do that. I don't try to save anybody, because I cannot. But I can point people to him so that they can use their free will to accept him and say, well, if he did it for that crazy dude I just talked to, he could do it for me. And I mean, that's all God requires of us, right? I mean, is it that simple? Pretty much.
So I'm hearing you say, pay attention. It's almost as if we need to gather back with God, just like we would with people in our family, and say, okay, so the Lord's asking you in that time with him, how was your day? And right. When you do that, how was your day with God, that moment, look for where God was in your day. That's I'm right. Thankful that you were with me in this and this and this, and I see you showing me through this, this, and this. And then I also see you not only pay attention to where God is, but also listen for his voice through his word, and then walk it out. Find ways to live out the purpose as God calls you, one step at a time, to move forward and shine as brightly as you can. It's exactly what you're doing with the Yahweh Nissi album. Can you talk about the specific messages and takeaways that you want to make sure people hear through the music that you're presenting in this new project?
Yeah, thanks for that. This is an important thing, especially as a Christian band. It's one thing for everybody. The biggest thing every musician enjoys when somebody comes up after a show and says, that was awesome. But it's not about that, right? But my favorite part is when I get to spend time talking to people, like at the merch table, and we're just talking or praying or something. That's awesome time, because they're like, oh, this song really spoke to me in this way. As a Christian band, that's what we want, right? If you don't feel the love of Jesus, coming across the footlights, we should quit and just be a party band. Nothing against party bands. We should just do something like that because we're missing calling. And that's a tough one, right? So, but if you're doing a self-check, always going, am I doing in here what God is saying to do in here? That's the easiest way to keep it from becoming about you and remaining about him. Yeah, we want to remain about him. So Yahweh Nissi, we're calling God's army together. Let's go. That's the message there. Jesus can heal the world. That's the radio single for the new record. Mikey Howard, our producer, Love Journey Music and Seventh Time Down. He co-wrote that with us. Do you need a better title than that right now in the world? Just Jesus can heal that. If you've been through illness, Jesus can do that. If you've been through a divorce, Jesus can heal that. If you've had any addiction to anything, Jesus can heal that. So he can heal all of it. And that's the message for that. Like, no matter what you're going through in your life, Jesus can heal you in that realm, right? So there's that. And so as we go through the album and touch all these things, are the lyrics and the message pointing people to Christ. The lyrics and the message are way more important than the delivery method, which is me, the guys, the band, the music. It's if we did not have the band, the stage, the music, the lights, all that kind of stuff, and people just read our lyrics, just read them on a sheet, would they be reached as much as if we were performing it? That's a humbling experience and a major responsibility that we have to God, because we said we're willing to do this for you, and we have to get out of his way and let him.
So you've got victory in that messaging, how God is our victory and he is our leader as well, leading us the direction we should go when we don't know where to go. And you've also got this message of healing, and then you're partnered with service in Children's Cup Ministry. Can you talk about your partnership with them and what you hope to deliver to the world through that ministry?
Yeah, thank you, especially for that. One of my favorite things to talk about, actually. So when I started the band, and this is 20 years ago, more than that probably. And so Brother Dave Ollerking was a member of our church, and Children's Cup Ministry, he and his wife started. Basically, at that time, they were in Africa. So the AIDS villages in Africa, the children, the infants to childhood, early childhood, had no parents because all the parents had died off of AIDS because it was just rampant going through there. Dan, his son, who now runs Children's Cup, because Brother Dave passed away in Africa on mission, which was his heartfelt. That's how he wanted to go. So, but when I talked to him, I said, bands have big, like Compassion International or some other things. Donna and I have been sewing into Children's Cup. And so what I would love is permission to tithe off of all of our merchandise sales and everything else to Children's Cup, if I could do that. He says, done. And that's how he worked. Done. And so ever since we've done that, now they've expanded. They're in South America. They're all over the place. So childrenscup.org is the website. And if anybody wants to find out more information about that, they can do that. There's a link to Children's Cup on our website. I actually went on a mission trip to Africa with Dan. This is years ago. I still had a little hair left. And we went and did that. And it's just amazing. It's like the Wild West over there. It's just, adobe huts is what they live in, this, that, and the other. And you just realize how blessed you are to be born where we're born, right? With all that. But it was an amazing trip. And a lot of the young children that I saw back then are now pastors in their villages. And to me, I'm like, look what God did. And God is like, that's right. Look at what I did. And so, do you want to experience that for eternity? Let's have a party. And so we get to go to heaven and then review all of these victories that he's given us in our life. If we look at it and we stop to think, really think, and press into that, and we look at what we think are failures in our life, and then we look at the victories that we have in our life, the victories, not only are they far more sweeter, there's far more of those than failures and misery And it's all because of what God's doing in our lives.
So good. Always good to talk to you. You always have such a message of hope and strength to offer audiences. Is there any specific word that you feel led to offer to those who may be struggling in a place of doubt or struggling in suffering in their faith and just insecurity? Anything specific that you want to leave the audience with today?
I can. There's two things that I think are most important. And those two things are press in, like press in. It's hard to press in when you feel like you're not getting the answers. It's really hard to press in, but God, Tina Yeager, but God. And so it's that, right? And when we press into him and we seek, and I'm not talking kind of half-heartedly, I'm talking about all in. Press in. And if you press into him and just really seek him, and then I always thought God was going to be this huge booming thundercloud sounding voice, like top of Mount Sinai type thing, right? And the thing that I found out mostly is it's this. It's a very calm, you know who's speaking to you. It's him speaking directly to you. And God is through the Spirit talking to you through your spirit. And if we press into that and we can get that connection, that's like a hotline. That's like a hotline connection. And God can bring us through and heal us through some of these things that we're concerned about.
Such a fantastic word, as always. And I want people to make sure that they get a copy of Yahweh Nissi and download your music in all of the places they can find it. How can people stay connected with you and get more of this amazing work that you have to offer?
Yeah, thank you again for that. So rockinforjesus.com is the website. There's a contact page on the back. Just get in touch with us that way. Let us know what you're looking for, what you're doing. We'll take care of it on our end and connect. We'd love to connect with you and see what God's got for you. I promise it's big.
I hope that all of you listening are inspired now to go out and check out Rockin' for Jesus at the Empowered website and get a copy of Yahweh Nissi and all of the other albums, because this is a powerful way to really commune with God through music. And I know that the genuine heart behind this makes it even more impactful for those who hear it. And of course, I also hope that you subscribe and come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant. Flourish-Meant is part of the Spark Media Network and can be found on the Edify app.